Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I'm Mark Schumacher. I'm the CEO of the Home Furnishings Association. I want to welcome you to one of our webinars, the highly sought after webinars of ours, because we really take issues that are important to you, challenges you have, and we make sure that we are giving you details and great takeaways so that it can help your business. And we've got a great subject today because we're talking about loyalty programs today. We've done so much with talking about driving traffic and customer service and everything along those lines and customer experience. We're going to focus today on loyalty programs, and I think you're going to find some great takeaways. But let me give you a little bit of housekeeping here before we start. First of all, I always like to thank our friends at Synchrony. They are our thought leadership sponsors of education here at HFA, and that of course includes these webinars. And by the way, for those of you joining us who are part of their Ignite program, at the end of this webinar, we'll tell you how you can gain some points, and I think you all know what that means. And also, I want to just mention that these webinars are also, after we complete one, they join our library at myhfa.org/webinar, where you can tap into them at any time. I highly recommend that. There's going to be so many takeaways. You might want to watch this webinar even again, or certainly share it with your teams. Also, if you have any questions, the right side of your screen, there's a little chat box. Please add your questions in there, and we will get to them as best we can during this hour. I do have the questions that all of you put in as you signed up for this webinar. But let me introduce you to our panel today, and we've got a good one. I have Jenny Albert here. Jenny is a marketing manager for Duncan Bright Furniture. That is a retailer and HFA member up in Syracuse, New York. They have 2 stores there, and they do a tremendous job up there. Opened a store within the last 2 years, and it's doing really, really well. So Jenny, thank you for joining us. Also, we have Richard Harris, who has perhaps the best title on the planet. He is VP of Happiness at Urban Interactive. I love that. They're a full service advertising agency, so it just kills me. I'm jealous. That's why I say that. We appreciate you being here, Richard. And also we have Ryan Blumenthal here. He's Vice President of Sales with ClientBook, and they are a leading app for retail that really brings a lot of this together and do a tremendous job. And everybody on this program's got a ton of experience. So y'all, I appreciate you being here. This is kind of a neat subject matter because loyalty programs are something that I think have kind of come and gone a little bit. There's some people that did them for a while and they kind of went out of fashion, and now we realize, especially in the last couple of years, how important it is to retain customers, and we know that that's cheaper than trying to find new ones. So let's just talk a little bit. I'm just going to have us jump right in here, and I'm just going to kind of pick somebody to start here. I'm going to pick Richard. Richard, what do you think right now are the top ways that people are utilizing loyalty programs right now in our retail space?
Well, if you start off with, because everybody always puts acronyms and letters and things to them, so there's like 3 R's for customer loyalty: rewards, relevance, and recognition. So it's really making sure that how do you balance those? Because, to your point, it's 5 to 25 times cheaper to get a customer who already likes you to buy from you again. So it's some of the folks that's doing apps. Sometimes it's doing, different discounts. It's merchandise pieces there for the reward side of things. It's giving them some sort of extra buying in before somebody else. There's all kinds of different ways to go about that to hit that reward, relevance, and recognition. But it's really trying to make sure you're covering those. And then if you kind of follow that customer in that life cycle, you're looking at those from a reach to acquisition to conversion, retention, and then finally that loyalty. But it's all the way through. You have to be doing things to kind of build that with them so that they understand where they stand with you and how you perceive them as a customer.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. We're going to get deeper into that as this hour goes on. And by the way, I want to ask Jenny and Ryan, we're getting some feedback, so you might have a speaker up. So if you can either lower the speaker or maybe go to earpieces or whatever, that might be helpful, because we are getting some feedback there. So I appreciate that. And Jenny, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in because I want to ask you a quick question. What do you guys utilize at Duncan Bright when it comes to loyalty type programs?
We are big on our customer list. Our customer list is our gold, so we tend to reach out to our past customers rather frequently. We do this huge sale every year where we send out to certain promotions where they get like a free gift or additional to gift discounts, and it only goes to if you've bought from us before. So like it's not a new customer thing. It's almost like the opposite of what a lot of cell phone companies do. Where like, oh, if you sign up, you get extra promos. Whereas if you've already bought from us, then you get this exclusive financing deal or exclusive coupon, or we recently had a bunch of giveaways that we gave away, and it was you only got that communication if you're already on our customer list. So if you had already been our customer, it's literally loyalty. You get it because you bought from us already.
Let me ask you before we go, because I don't want to pass that up and then kind of come back to it. What's your cadence on that? I mean, how often are you touch pointing these existing customers in that way? I'm curious because everybody's always looking for that balance.
I'd say it's very much like a game of chess because you don't want to do it too frequently. We tend to cut it up into halves or thirds, and we'll hit half or a third at a time. And then the next, it's usually like quarterly-esque. The next quarter we'll hit the other chunk and do it that way.
Interesting. Okay, there's the first really fascinating takeaway of this whole thing. So kind of dividing up the list, don't feel like you've got to absolutely hit the entire list at one time, and it kind of varies it up. Love that.
Well,
Ryan, I want to ask.
definitely used to hit the whole list, but it's grown. And when you're doing like mailers and TV and different things like that, it's a matter of hitting 60,000 homes or like 100,000 homes, and there's generally a difference in how many you're sending out at that point.
Well, Ryan, let me ask you to pick up on that. So how important, just right out of the gates here, as we're talking about this, is that type of focus? I mean, I think there's sometimes a tendency to have this be more of a kind of a scattergun approach, if you will. How do you feel about cadence and things of that sort?
Yeah, I really agree with Jen there, because I think it's important that you may want to segment your customer list so that you're delivering even more highly relevant offerings to them, because not every customer will be interested in every event that you have in your store or every product offering. And if you don't segment, you're probably not listening to what that customer cares about. And if you do segment, then you're kind of proving, you're improving that relationship with that client because you're really tailoring the offer.
And so when you say segment, are we talking about the typical things where it comes to certain demographical aspects, or is it geographic? When you talk about that, what's your definition of that kind of segmentization?
I think it's more preferences. If they, like a certain event, if they like certain product offerings, I think of it more in those terms than I do geographics.
Okay, Richard, jump in on this, because this is really an interesting, comment, because what Ryan is basically saying is that you don't want to just throw money at this. You don't just want to put these things out, but you want to make sure that you're. I love that segmentization, because also you're getting an idea better about ROI. But talk a little bit more about the importance of doing that just right out of the gates here.
Well, I think you do that in everything, quite honestly. I don't think you just do it here. You do it in even how you market. You shouldn't market, leather sectionals to everybody, because not everybody's going to pay the price for a leather sectional. Same difference as somebody who's doing bedrooms. But when you're talking about customers and trying to engage with them and trying to make them advocates, because at the end of the day, loyalty is it's about coming back to you. And if for them to come back to you, they have to be an advocate. They have to believe in what you have. So you're going from that first time customer experience to making them a repeat customer, to making them a client and an advocate. It's carrying them through that kind of 6 stages of a customer, from suspect, prospect, first time, and so in that, you want to be delivering that customized feeling to them every single step of the way, and it shouldn't change after they've already bought something. They shouldn't get lumped into the pool and go, okay, yeah, everybody wants this beautiful glass fruit bowl that's got our name on it, yay. Because a lot of times people see that as, hey, I gave them a gift, but I mean, how many people put a glass fruit bowl out with the furniture company's name on it? It's not exactly, the only person who it was a gift for was you. It's finding what's going to really move those customers and where are their likes and preferences. And you can do that. I mean, I know like in ClientBook side, they have the ability to do surveys with customers and other ways to do that kind of back and forth. I hate to call it prospecting, but better, deeper understanding of your customer side, who they are and what they really see about you and how they relate to you. And that's part of the reasons why we ask people to give us ratings and reviews. But how often do we use those rating and reviews to start building out what do we do right? What do we do wrong? Where do we make improvements on that? How do we build somebody and move them from a first-time customer to the repeat customer to an advocate? How do we get them through those stages? And that's understanding those customers. And you do need to segment them out. As you start to understand them, you want to deliver a different message to them so that as messages that are going there fit those customers, even sometimes in certain languages, in certain types of messages and looks and feels of messages. Older audience may respond better to one message than a younger audience. I'm not a big fan of throwing furniture side on TikTok, but if that is your audience because you happen to have a brand that goes after a very young demo, then then we need to be there, but we need to be there that makes sense with an ad that fits that kind of place, that kind of look for that audience. And again, that's making the message fit the customer. And that's really what you talk about. When you talk about segmenting, you're just talking about making the message fit. So it's not one size fits all.
So Jenny, to talk a little bit then, if you wouldn't mind, about what you're capturing then, because if you're gonna be segmenting going forward, what are the things you're capturing from the responses to some of these efforts, and how are you then utilizing those going forward?
We definitely look into like their purchases. Like if we had decided that the customer promo this quarter is going to be a discount on dining sets, we're segmenting out all the customers recently who bought dining sets because they don't need one, they just got one. Whereas maybe a past customer that bought a sectional is looking to add a dining set to their collection, versus we don't want to just waste an advertisement or special offer on somebody that wouldn't be using it because they just purchased from us and they like our stuff, but maybe our promo right now isn't for them. So we like to think of our customers in the sense that we don't want to waste their time. It's like, okay, we understand that this isn't your place in life right now, but there are customers that it could be their place in life, and we segment those ones out and send the promotions to them.
Okay, Ryan, before we get off this, I wanted you to take a little bit more time here to really talk about that. So I know you talked about buying trends, things like that, what people are looking for. So give us, help the folks out that are watching this. What are the things that you feel they should be pulling from the responses to these programs so that they can be really segmenting as they go along and doing a better job each and every time?
Well, one, I'll just agree with Jenny again. I think that's an excellent thing to look at when you are having these events is you could almost start ruling out. So there's those opt into those preferences that you're going to look for, but who can you likely rule out of this scenario? And that's a good way to get the list a little bit more narrow, so that you have a highly relevant audience. But at ClientBook, we tend to start, and every store is a little bit different in what they want to, in how they want to understand their clients. And so I would really say, Mark, that's where you start as a business owner. These are the preferences that make sense to me in my business. I have my, VIP clients. I have my clients that love to, get called when new accessories come in. I have clients that no matter what, they're going to be redoing some portion of their house at some point. And I know, and everybody has some different terminology here, but I think you start there and you create these categories. And these are and you almost create these categories and then put the description of that category underneath it. And then you could communicate that to your store, your managers, your associates, and then you have some common language as a business to start bucketing these customers into. And at ClientBook, we have these things called tags, and we start tagging them through, or we bulk load them into these tags. But that's really where it starts, is with ownership or management, kind of making sure that that the terminology works for them.
Because kind of what I'm hearing here, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of the light bulb just went off here, is that, okay, so tomorrow somebody comes in my store and makes a purchase, I should already be thinking about which bucket they go into for this next step for the loyalty piece, right? I mean, that starts the moment somebody transacts. And I see Jenny, I see you nodding, and you agree with that, and talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because we're very customer centric in the sense that all of our salespeople they're very friendly and they get relationships with their customers basically when they walk in the door. And it's like they get to know, like, if they just bought a house, if they're refurbishing a house, if they're just looking to upgrade old, then the salesperson already has a sense of, okay, this customer is asking for this, but eventually they're going to need this in like their life situation or life plan, or how it's going like that. Because we've had salespeople here for 20, 30, 40 years that will literally want to just send out marketing emails or something to customers that like, we haven't heard from the Smiths in a while. Let's see what they're up to, see if they need any design services. It's been a minute since we've heard from them, and that's abnormal. And it's just our salespeople are very good at those relationships, and that helps us to understand how to keep them loyal and what to market to them.
And I'll let Richard or Ryan jump in there too, because I think this is an important point, that you need to be thinking about how these customers fit into your loyalty program the moment they transact, correct? And either one of you, go ahead, Jen.
Well, I say it's correct, but I also would go beyond the salesperson. It's the person at the front desk. It's the person who delivers the furniture in a massive way. Anybody who does setups and things. I mean, you're looking at trying to build that loyalty relationship. You got to make a commitment, and that goes all the way through. So to being a loyal partner involves, that conscious commitment to that relationship all the way through, and then offering continual support, having that effective communication, practice the gratitude side of things. And that's really tough, but then it's also being persistent with that, and then staying true to who you are as a company and yourself. And then it's sometimes the small gestures, it's things that people forget, that we've come back so much in the world to a transactional relationship, that when people do just the smallest things that are kind of uncharacteristic, we're like, wow, they did this, and it means so much. And then kind of understand that there's a little bit of practice of forgiveness, that somebody can miss something, can do something a little, how do I kind of, work through that, and don't just, our automatic sense is, we used to say the customer's always right. Now we always figure the customer's always wrong. How do we kind of work around it? It's, even in our own relationships in the office, it's what's that forgiveness factor? How do we kind of make everybody feel a little better, so that conveys back to those customers all the way through? That loyalty side is a commitment. It has to start in every process that touches a customer, and every process where a customer could possibly interact with another employee.
I think I agree with, to close the loop on that, I agree with Richard a lot, Mark. And what I think this all comes down to too is whoever has the most information on their customers wins. And I think that transcends probably most every industry. Now we're doing it for the purposes of better serving them, not trying to mine data to sell it. But it is data collection. It is trying to understand who they are, what they like, to better service them.
I mean, once again, you guys have flipped the light bulb over my head on. Richard, you said something really interesting, and I just want to throw this out for everybody to talk about here. Are you suggesting, and it sounds like you are, and it sounds like this is just something I hadn't thought about, are you suggesting that if you've got that in your company, you should be getting feedback from delivery? There could be nuggets there that could really help you from the loyalty side? Because I never thought about that as a piece of it.
Absolutely, because you got to think of that, when your relationship with a customer typically ends in the store, but to the customer, it doesn't end in the store. It ends when it comes to their house. So who set it up? Did you just like drop it off and wait, or did you actually help them unpeel it, unpack it, get it set up, everything there? Because that's that extra step. Yeah, it takes time. Yes, it's part of the cost. There's all things involved there. But if you're really making it set up for them, and hey, does that look right, and colors, and if somebody's doing designer, did the salesperson do like a live, hey, let's zoom, let me see how it looks in your living room, interact with that person and say, oh yeah, I just got it, here it is. Yeah, I got a note from my driver's side, I just dropped it off. I wanted to zoom and see how it looked. Those type of things is, again, that extra level that goes up to like, these guys care about me. And that's a driver doing nothing but saying dropped off, and it's as simple as a ticket system. Dropped off at the Smiths, great, goes in, so they're going to the next thing, but now the salesperson can be notified, Smiths got it, okay, let me reach out to them. So all of that can come together and make one full relationship, because you've got to, the example right now that put out is you have 100 days to make an advocate of a client from the time they make a purchase. So the amount of times you have to touch that person in that 100 days is a lot, to make them feel like, yes, I'm going to tell people about my experience with you as a furniture store, and not just the factor of, yeah, I bought a couch yesterday. Okay, great. Who'd you get it from? Oh, that store down the street. I want them to say my name. I want them to tell them my salesperson's name. I want to tell them how great it was that delivery was. That's loyalty.
Jenny, I saw you kind of nodding there too. Talk a little bit about that feedback, because I think that there's a need for that to be more purposeful.
Oh yeah, delivery is, in our experience, what makes or breaks a repeat customer. If they have a delivery with somebody that irked them the wrong way, that was in the truck, or that set something up wrong, or broke broke the furniture as they're setting up or scuffed a wall or something, then I mean, that's what loses you. So we always have notes in our orders from the delivery people, and if the customer is more likely to review if they have a very good situation with the delivery people. The delivery people is what seals the deal in our experience. A good delivery is a repeat customer. A bad delivery is a gone customer. For sure.
And I love what Richard talked about too, about that follow-up. It's just a great excuse for that salesperson to reach back out. And one other thing I'll throw in before Ryan, I definitely want to get your input on this, but one thing I would throw in that I thought was one of the more brilliant things I've heard over the last couple of years, particularly in the pandemic when there was such a long wait, et cetera. And there was a retailer that said their caveat to their delivery teams were celebrate the delivery. And I love that commentary, because it's like, if there's that kind of an attitude by your delivery team going out there just going like, man, we know you've been waiting, but this is one of the the best parts of my day, because we're gonna fulfill this for you, we're gonna make this happen. There's a lot that plays into what we're talking about right here. But Ryan, talk a little bit more about that, the feedback from that critically important final mile, last touch kind of a thing, and how that fits with these loyalty programs.
Yeah, even before Client Book, I'm a lifelong retailer, and I would speak to my staff of, it can't just be they had a good service. They have to talk about us at dinner that night. And that would be the bar. That would, if they're home, they're going to discuss, they were so amazing today delivering. Or if they went out to dinner with friends that week, they would have to say, my experience with this retailer was so amazing. They would have to bring it up, because it's so rare and it's so unique to offer that level of that high level of service. And that was the bar that I wanted to have in retail, and by extension, now that's what I want people to be able to accomplish with Client Book. But that's what we would always say is, will they talk about us at dinner? In a good way. It works both ways. It could be bad too, but it's got to be positive.
No, but I just love that, because we've just in the last few moments talked about the fact of there are just these critical touch points in this process. And Richard, talked about the 100 days. That it starts with that transaction, ends with the delivery. But I think what you're suggesting to everybody is be looking for any nugget that you can during that whole process, or nuggets that will lead you to really understanding the customer better and build the loyalty. I mean, that's this is not something you just leave to a certain point and go, oh, now we should reach out to these former customers. You want to have much more in advance of that. I wanted to ask a quick question to you all. It might be a quick answer, and this is going to be, I do kind of toss-ups, so I don't know who I want to send this to, so you guys just feel free to jump in. But it's something that, Richard, you kind of touched on. There's been some questions that have been talking about different age categories, and have said, gosh, how do you connect with Gen Z, and do they respond to loyalty, et cetera? So I guess my question is are all loyalty programs alike when it comes to different ages, or is this part of that segmentization that you want to make sure that you're looking at? Because while we're talking about buying trends, what people are looking for in their house, we also know that different chunks, the millennials, the baby boomers, everybody has a little bit of a different sense of how they want to be communicated with. So I'm going to throw that up there. Does that matter? Should you be thinking about that as you're talking about loyalty programs?
I believe you should. I mean, we see it not only on the ad side, but we see it in the delivery side. We see it in the conversion side, that you need to understand. It's everything we, as employees, you have to figure out how each employee likes to be communicated to. Some people you just give them tasks and they go. Some people have to have a reward system. I mean, it's the same difference on the other side is, what do I need to, make that person feel a certain way about it, where your older audience, that perfect delivery, that could be it, where the other one, it's more about, getting something in and feeling like there was that little, we threw this in because we knew you really liked it, and I got a cool little blanket that went with my couch that was sitting there that may have been a, easy item to do, but it was that, oh, they gave that to me. That was so sometimes it's different things for different people where it goes, and you really have to understand where that audience runs. To that example in the delivery, one of our groups, which actually does flooring and such, their install guys, when they walk back through, wear a body cam. And the reason they wear the body cam is, one, because to make sure what the person said wasn't right, wasn't done, so there's no question of what he said, she said. But the other reason, which is kind of unique, is they record with factor going, okay, you got this done, this done. It's like, yeah, I really want to get these cabinets done next. Things that they can do so they can start setting it up for what are the next items that they can start kind of positioning this person towards. Because anytime somebody starts on a home improvement product, it's, give a mouse a cookie. Okay, now I need a napkin, now I need milk, now I need this. It always expands. And furniture happens to be the same way. Okay, I did the dining room, but now my living room looks like crap. Now I got to, next I have to work on that living room. The driver heard it, salesperson didn't hear it. So
Right.
is the driver cognizant enough to bring that back and start going, hey, he said that you might be considering some living room stuff. Let me know what you're kind of looking at colors. If I see anything that's a really hot deal or something else, I'll let you know. Yes, absolutely. That'd be great, because while they're
Okay.
thinking about it, that's that opportunity. So there's a lot of different ways you can do to really help turn your external staff beyond sales into sales, just not necessarily that commission functional sales.
What we've noticed with like older clients versus younger clients, different generations in that sense, is what like not preferences, but speed. Like our younger audiences, it's a matter of like they just want like something that they like, but also something that can come within a week. Versus I'm sure a lot of our older clients, they like want what they want, and if it takes 6 to 12 weeks or even more, then they're willing to wait for it. Whereas our younger, maybe first time families, they're more willing to like, okay, I'll just get this gray color, but it'll be here Saturday, right? So that's what we've learned with the different demographics in that sense.
So Ryan, kind of play off of that for a second, because what I hear kind of between the lines of what Jenny is saying there is that part of your, segmenting and everything else, really understanding, is you also want to understand the responsiveness, I guess, the way that the expectation, if you will, of things like that, about speed of delivery and that sort of thing. I mean, I guess we really, this is all about, like you said, information is king. How does that fit in?
Knowing your clients. And it's funny, the data that we've seen recently too, in these, to mention these generations that you brought up, is that they're only scoring personalized offerings higher in level of importance to them. So not necessarily lowest cost or anything, they're rating the personalization of offers so much higher. And the response rate to things that aren't personalized to them in offerings, because we look at a lot of data of, customer reach out and email reach out, text, and, marketing and things of those natures. But if it's not personalized, it really goes by the wayside to them. And I think this is really good information as independent retailers, because we get to do that best. We could do that better than a lot of different competitors out in the market.
Appreciate that, and that's really, really helpful. There's, along these same lines, we are starting to get some really great questions in here as well, and I want to get to some of these because I think they're interesting. So this one I'll toss out to everybody, but the question is, do things like financing and promoting that, we know right now because of the economy that that more people are financing, is that part of the loyalty message as well, beyond the different product aspects as well, or does that just depend customer to customer? Go ahead, Richard, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, well, I'd say it's not necessarily a loyalty factor as much as it is at this point become the norm. Like we expect that our stores are going to have 12-month, 24-month, 36-month, no payment, 0%, a certain amount of money. We've trained customers into that, so it's not as much of a loyalty that you have it. But if there isn't that going on, so there isn't that financing, and then you say, because you've bought from us before, we can offer you this financing, it's not a main advertised, then it becomes something that's special. But if it's a main advertised side, I don't think it plays to that loyalty card, because loyalty is about building a relationship, and that's a relationship offering to all.
Okay, so if you do it, you're suggesting it's got to be something that's truly is a little more exclusive, for lack of a better term, something that's specific.
Yeah. So I have a store that feels that their customers don't need financing that way, because their customers are higher end. But
Okay.
and they don't advertise it, they don't promote it. That they do offer it, but they don't promote it that way. So somebody comes in, it's like, okay, so your total is $25,000, and it's like, okay, they're gonna move it between a couple of cards. Well, you could always use our financing program. We can do that for you for 24 months, the same, with no interest. Oh yeah, that'd be great. Okay, go ahead. And it's never promoted out there, but they offer it to them at the closing. So because they don't want to look at themselves the same way as, I'm not trying to pick on a sort of retailer, but like a Rooms to Go who's always throwing a number out there. So it has a different ring to it because they don't want to see themselves in that same level of store. They want to see themselves a little higher end, but those customers still take financing. It's just that's their feeling of how they present it.
Okay. Jenny, what about you all?
Yeah, we've actually done something, I don't know if it's almost opposite of what Richard's saying, is like we'll do specific offer of financing, maybe like longer terms or no money down for our customers. Like for the loyalty program, it's like, okay, like this isn't being advertised to the public, but you can get 60 months if you come in and buy, or like you don't have to put anything down and you can get it in that sense. And we do a lot of that where it's like our previous customers only will get 60 months, nothing down, things like that.
So it's got to be, I mean, you're chiming in here that it's got to be unique, but it can be a tool. That's what the question was, is this something? So yeah. Awesome stuff. I have another question, Ryan, I want to focus you on this one. There are a number of retailers that have the transactional ability online, or at least a lot of this whole buying process starts there. We know that. Does that complicate matters at all when you're talking about trying to build loyalty if somebody is really has been more of an online purchase without a lot of the connecting points we've talked about here at the moment, at least on the front end?
I think it's been painted that way, but I don't think it should be that way. I think whether you bought it online or in the store, you have. It's within your benefit to create this wonderful experience for them that ties them, makes them loyal to your brand. If you just view them as an e-commerce customer and that's who they are, that doesn't seem very a good retention strategy for that customer because there's a lot of places you can buy online, even more so than going to your brick and mortar stores. So are you going to be the store that even when you sell something online, you're going through all the things that we've spent the last half an hour talking about? If you did, you'll likely get more business from that customer. So I don't think you should view, we have an e-commerce experience and then we have our in-store experience and one's better than the other.
Okay. Any either Jenny or Richard, you want to jump in on that at all?
Well, I would say the e-commerce side, you actually could possibly get more information about the customer because somebody walks into a store, sometimes they're trying to avoid the salesperson, they're just trying to get this. I can see what you looked at. I can see what you spent more time on. I can retarget you with particularly that product that you like. We kind of start knowing what your likes, your preferences, the colors, those type of things, where that starts to have to be a part of a conversation that salesperson has to develop over maybe multiple shops or something else. That person's done all that, and we have algorithms that can figure all the pieces out for you and say, okay, here's who this person is, here's what their likes and desires. But you could even add to that with some of the new AI and some of the technology that's out there. You can have somebody tell me what you're trying to do. What are you like? Well, I want boho farmhouse. I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but I've seen people ask that question multiple times. They're like, I don't know what that is. But you can put it in and it will actually then sort your inventory down to certain things. And you're starting to get a feeling for what people like and things on those lines. So there's a lot that you can do with your systems that will give you a good indication of who that customer is. And since you have that information, then when something boho farmhouse comes back up, you can send it right to them, say, hey, based on your previous things that you liked, hey, this just came in. You might really love this. It's like, wow, yeah, you do. And it's a chance to then upsell them one more, get something else out of it from there. So I think there's a real opportunity on there. I do realize that a lot of our brick and mortars e-commerce is a very small percentage of the overall sales. I still believe a lot of people want to sit in a chair and lay on a couch and feel those things, but it's the accessory items, it's the rugs, the lamps, all the other things that they are buying, and they are buying in a large amount. So I think there's some opportunities to really enhance that step because a lot of our customers start online before they come into the store. Well, if I know they like that and I know how the setups and the pictures and some of the things that were in there. Maybe I can suggest those lamps, those pictures, those other things as a follow-up to those customers, and really try to sell them on those accessory items just via our own sites.
Exactly.
Jenny, I saw you
And
wanted to
our
jump in
e-com
too.
team, they're interactive with our people. Like it's a chat, it's a call, it's whatever the customer is most comfortable with. We've learned that if they want to buy it, they're going to buy it. And it's a matter of maybe they don't want to be intimidated by a conversation with somebody in the store, not hounding them, but if they're uncomfortable with regular conversations and they're much more comfortable chatting over an email or just a chat, then our e-com team can see what they're looking at. Like you said, like suggest accessories, suggest rugs, things of that nature, that they don't really need to hound the customer to get more information from them, because they can see everything that they're interested in and everything that they're already looking at and get recommendations on that. Or if they're looking at something and they're like, but we don't have this budget for it, and our e-com team literally looks in our clearance barn on the floor for them, and it's like, oh, we actually have a similar thing and it's a lower cost and we can get this for you, and they don't even have to come to the store and they can still get
And
a great
that kind of an
experience without
approach,
being uncomfortable.
yeah, that kind of approach, you just kind of spoke my love language, because to me that would be like just a huge loyalty factor. If it's just like, boy, you're listening to me and now you're trying to get me what I want but save me money at the same time. I mean, that's like a home run. Ryan, this question came up and I'm going to ask it a little bit differently, just because this is something that I've been preaching for years, and that is, no matter the business, but of course today we're talking about home furnishings retail. If you try to just have people conform to the communication channels that you want to put out, I think you're losing a lot. I think that one of the key elements to this conversation with loyalty is understanding what is each person's. You talk about segmenting. What is each person's preferred communication channel? I don't want to be sending a mailer to somebody that chucks everything in the garbage can, or an email to somebody that doesn't check email. So what do you feel are the best ways for people to address that? Because the question as it came in was, what's the best way to find that out? They were talking about, looking at everything from, is that a survey question or whatever? But talk a little bit about that, because I just feel like you don't want to waste time in communication channels that people aren't listening to.
Yeah, I think it certainly can be a survey, but it's best in a one-on-one conversation with a customer, where you can notate they love to text, they prefer email, they prefer a phone call, because people do have preferences when it comes to those things, and I think it should absolutely be noted, and hopefully the system that you're keeping that in doesn't make it so manual that you always have to toggle what you want to do, but rather just knows the preference factor of that customer, and can set it up accordingly.
Am I overstating that, or is that something that you think is a critically important piece, Ryan?
No, I think it does a couple of things. One, it shows that you actually care to the customer, that they prefer to be communicated this way and you pay attention to it. And then two, your likelihood of them seeing your personalized message or offer just went through the roof because you paid attention. Whereas it might be like many people, where I know you've been emailing me, but I don't check my email. There's 1,000 emails in there, and you're just not going to get me that way. So it does a couple things that benefit you as the retailer and them as a consumer.
Jenny, any thoughts on that?
Definitely. Our not motto, but like what we do is, however the customer contacts us is how we contact the customer. Like, okay, they sent us a Facebook message, we're just going to follow along that trail till the end of the sale, or they chat us in on the website, go with that. They give us a call, they walk into the store, they send an email to just our info@duncanbright.com, whatever. We just take it as that's how they initiated it. That's clearly how they want to interact. So we just go with the flow that way.
Yeah, and I appreciate you both on that, because when we get so many questions from member retailers about budgeting and how you save money and things like that, and they're making these massive spends on sort of broad-based advertising and things of that sort. This is one of the easiest ways, I think, to save money and to connect more directly to everybody you're dealing with. And gosh knows, if you guys are talking about that, we haven't used this word yet, but you're talking about everybody needs to build credibility with their customers. And that's what loyalty comes from. And how do you do that more than, like you said, Ryan, I loved it. You're basically saying, listen to the customer, understand what's going on. So now the next question is, and this is a Mark question, because this is always a challenge, I think. And Richard, I'll let you start this one. So with all of that said, Ryan, we've got great data. We know. Jenny, we got a good idea what the person wants. How do you approach this? How do you approach that customer without it feeling creepy? Because let's face it, right? There's that fine line between, hey, we know what you're looking for, to, oh my God, they were really paying too much attention to my house and they know too much about me. It's a fine line. Richard, I'm gonna let you start that. I want to hear from everybody in this, because this is a challenge that a ton of retailers talk about.
It is, and I think it's the level of where you go on the creepy. So when you look at how to win a client's heart and mind, okay, and their wallet at the end of the day, there's 7 key factors to it. So shut up and listen, which it's what he hit on right there. Is like, we got to shut, because as human beings, we're not really built to do that. We're much like a rock. We don't really do a good job at just shut up and listening. But knowing your clients, that can be trying to figure out how to be zen-like and kind of figure out where they want to go. But it is communication. Communication's key. But be confident in that communication and be their authority. It's okay if they say, well, I've heard that that FlexDeal thing is this. Okay, hey, no, FlexDeal is actually a great product. Back it up. Be the authority for them. Help them see something that they may have read on Reddit or someplace else. Don't cave to a client on your product. So you have to challenge that norm and share your results type of thing. Here, here's what we found. There's this. So you can take kind of pieces of what they say and use them. It's just where you use them. I'm like, when she was talking about following up with somebody based on the fact they came in, I agree with that. But I also love to say, hey, is it okay if I text you? Because text is one of those, once we get that number,
ask permission.
Ask permission. Can I text you? Sure. Because I can send images through, I can keep track of stuff, I can let you know when something's coming. And it's an easy, clean format, because most people don't check their emails that often. And a lot of it goes to spam if you got Gmails and that. I mean, it's just asking. And again, it's that communication piece. I think if it's communicated and it seems sincere, it doesn't seem creepy. It seems like you're just trying to make sure you're helping me. I think what it seems creepy is that the factor of, you picked out the peacock colored sofa and this because you went onto my Facebook account and you saw that my house was this color and this would be a perfect color to go with it. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, stalker. So it's, you have to look at it a little differently than that side of it. It's not going that far, but it's just, hey, you said this, but I want to make sure, what are you really thinking? It's open, that communication. You can give people leading questions where you kind of know the answer, but you want them to confirm it. And that way, when they're confirming that, they feel like they gave you the information. They gave you the permission to have that information, not that you already knew, hey, you've been looking at just gray leather sofas online. So obviously you're looking for a gray leather sofa. It's like, so you're looking for a leather sofa, great. What kind of color range? Is that going to be something like a gray or a brown? Oh no, gray, definitely gray. That'd be great. Okay, fantastic. You can throw it in there as that option.
Gotcha.
Question.
Gotcha. Jenny, what do you think about this fine line between creepy and?
I think at least what helps us and how we do it is we just kind of keep it subtle and casual. Like, you can't go in with anything super specific or hyper specific that you don't want to make your customer feel uncomfortable, which is what I get with like a creepy vibe. Like, oh, how do you know this is what I want? Like, we do have our dynamic ads that like, oh, you searched for a great gray recliner, so we know you want a gray recliner. But we don't, like he said, like, we're not just going to say, oh, you want a gray recliner. It's like, no, like, what we still start with, like, oh, what are you in the market for? Or what are you looking? We don't, like, we do know the things, but we don't go in assuming that, okay, they searched for this one time. Maybe they were looking for a friend and it wasn't exactly what they were looking for. We just, like, we kind of know the answers, but we don't want to assume that we know, and we just go in just asking and being inquisitive versus just
what they say when you assume.
Well, and Ryan, the thing that I want you to chime, yeah, exactly. Ryan, what I think I'd like you to chime in on that is that, the reason that I bring that up, and it's something that's on my radar, is because all that we're talking about today with these loyalty programs are wonderful. And I mean, this is about, really building this, but you can also lose it in a nanosecond, right? And I think that are you in agreement this is a nuance you need to at least be thinking about as you're making those approaches, or am I making too much of it? And you can feel free to disagree. That's cool.
No, I agree with you. And I also agree it needs to be talked about at the store and trained on, because I've had my own experiences with this where I've had, great, some of the best writers on my team, and they're totally comfortable with somebody comes into the store and showing expensive product and closing and all those things. Yet, if you were to task them with going outbound, for example, of reaching out to customers, it's horrific. Like, they don't know how to do it. They're scared to do it, and because they're scared, it comes off strange and maybe too pushy. So it really needs to be talked about and trained on. You can't assume, like Richard said, that your best people will just naturally know how to do this, because it's a different muscle than people just walking into the front.
Super important. Jenny, do you guys utilize training like that? I'm just curious. Is that something everybody's aware of?
To an extent, we learn very quickly because the way our salespeople are trained, they go through like e-com, they go through the service, they go through all the different departments. So we kind of quickly learn, like, okay, this one is more comfortable suggesting outside stuff. This one's more follow the customer base versus this one's going to call them more often. This one's going to text them more often. And like, we've got ones that are very designer specific. So like, they'll head out with a customer and be like, okay, like, I see you have an empty room. Can we plan it for you? And they're more comfortable suggesting big, bold things versus there's some that like are used to aiming like, okay, like, do you want like a love seat? Like, is that good? And they're looking for like a giant sectional versus it's just whatever they're more comfortable with. And we just have learned that way and put them where they're needed.
No, that's important. I mean, that's really, I think, a lot of what Ryan's talking about too. It's not only training to that, but it's also play to the strengths of your team, right? You don't want to put people in this. You can't always train people to be really good at this follow-up loyalty piece. I have an open question for everybody, and this question came in: is what's the healthiest ratio, if there is such a thing, between new customers and repeat customers? As you start to get into some of the the ROI on this, is there a ratio that people should be shooting for? Is there a standard? And I'll let anybody jump in that wants to jump in.
I mean, we aim for both. Like,
Yeah,
new customers and return customers are both good.
Yeah, well, you're always constantly trying to build that number. I was like, the frame of, the factor 20% of your people cause 80% of your problems type of thing, and 80% of your customers are, 20% of your sales, there's 20% that spend the most money. I mean, there's all kinds of weird little ratio factors like that, but in reality, you should be able to know about 60% of the folks that are buying from you should be people who have done some sort of business with you over the past 2 years, because furniture is not necessarily a every month type of thing. So somebody comes in cycles. So the goal is to get somebody to come back and it's like, I did my living room last year, I'm gonna do the dining room this year or the year after. They should be within a certain cycle period based on the size, incomes, and things that kind of fit in there. But when they're that way, again, how you put them in your CRMs, how you follow up on them, you should be saying, are they making it in that cycle? If they're not, that's a problem. We may have lost somebody, but you also need to look at how's your traffic flow? Who are you losing people to? So to that point of that education side of things, maybe they came in the store, but nobody pulled them up to see, oh, that's, Miss Brown, and Miss Brown was just here a year ago. So Miss Brown's time for her to come back in. Instead, they just had a brief conversation and let Miss Brown walk out the door. If I would have said, hey, have you ever bought here before? Yeah, I have. Okay, great. Let me pull you up your stuff. We can try to help match up the stuff you may have already gotten. Okay, that at least gives some information, just, that kind of ask, because there's a lot of things that I think we have info on that we don't utilize, even to the point of when we do reviews, there's a lot of what I call backhanded compliments and comments in reviews. It's like, oh, I gave you 5 stars, but that person at the door dresses like a bum. Those small little things that are in there are really telling, and we need to use a lot more of that information than just going, I don't understand how somebody gives you a 5 and says something crappy. Because they really like you, but they're trying to tell you that one thing could hurt you with the next person. And you need to take notice of those. And so for that training aspect you were just talking about, I don't think we spend enough time looking at some of those obvious things the customers tell us back that we just kind of blow off in those, 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star reviews. Because I get you're never going to make everybody happy, but there are definitely some things worthwhile in there.
So Ryan, let me ask you this: when it comes to loyalty programs, what are there KPIs that people should be paying attention to as they work their way through this?
Yeah, I mean, to get back to your last question too, is that, what's the right mix? Well, sometimes with a KPI, it could be reasonable. People can disagree on it should be 60-40 and 50-50 and this and that, but the moment you start measuring it is the moment you could start understanding your own effectiveness in these areas, because you can see if it's going up or down. So if the new customer acquisition is low or it's decreasing, you might say to yourself, our marketing mix there's something wrong here. Maybe our location's wrong, marketing mix is wrong, because we're not getting new customers walking through the door. And the same way from customer loyalty and retention, you could see that number decreasing or increasing, and you could have you could start to understand these things I'm doing to clientele and bring my current customers back into the store. They aren't working, or oh my God, look at this, it's working. Let's double down on this.
Okay, there's just we're in our last 5 minutes here. You just hit on something I wanted to ask, and I'll ask Jenny first. Is because a lot of people ask, they do ask about budgets, and you just talked about advertising mix and all that kind of stuff. Is loyalty something that really should be primarily personalized and not a broad campaign specifically, or what do you feel is more effective?
We don't push the loyalty perks and things like that as like a broad campaign to everybody. It's kind of, I mean, this is going to sound bad, but it's kind of like once you buy in, then you get the perks and all the little
You're in the club,
mini bonus
right?
things. Yeah, but it's not like, okay, shop with us once and you might get a financing promo here in 6 months or something. It's more of a, once you buy from us, you kind of become part of the Dunkin' Bright loyalty program, and it's just part of being a customer. Is you get the access to the interior designers, you get access to the deliveries people, the customer service, and that's why we do focus on first person to last person they interact with needs to be someone that is happy and they're comfortable with and isn't angry with them or cranky or mad that something broke, because things break and that happens sometimes. So dealing with the service people, and that is always a positive in the Dunkin' Bright world.
Richard, personalization, is that what it really is all about, and not necessarily a big broad-based campaign?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I would love to tell everybody spend more money on advertising, the reality is that's not what you do here. I mean, it is, there are some things where you spend money, but it's more into those internal programs. It is in your ticket systems, your client book systems, those things to where you can do the follow-ups to there. It's not a ad campaign necessarily. Now, it does come out of sometimes marketing because you're putting certain funds and things towards, these specials and these things, absolutely, but it's not a marketing program like I'm going out and buying spots to say this, or commercials from that aspect of it. So it's just part of that overall. But again, that's the least expensive marketing you have, because hey, getting a referral from a current customer is the cheapest thing. To offer somebody $25 gift card to Olive Garden because you gave me a referral, that's super cheap in comparison to what the new customer cost in TV ads and radio ads. So it's definitely one you don't mind spending a little bit of your marketing budget towards.
Okay, love that. Ryan, do you want any final comments on that, or?
Just that I agree with Richard 100%. It's not this marketing campaign that you go on the radio and say, hey, guess what? We have a loyalty program, and if you buy from us, we're going to treat you really well. But rather, it is a line item, though, on the budget that says we've invested in certain things. It could be software, or it could be gift cards, or whatever you're doing to promote that. It is, in my opinion, a part of the marketing budget, because it's you're using it as a retention tool or to drive more business to the store, one way or the other.
But to your points, all three of you, it's not something that is just part of your broad-based advertising at all. It's got to be very personalized. And Ryan, let me ask you one other quick question too. Richard brought it up here. So the role of reviews in this loyalty process of it. Talk a little bit about that, because I know a lot of our members do utilize reviews, et cetera. How important are they, and how do they fit into this whole process?
It's it's not the end all be all to everything, that you just need to focus on your reviews and everything else is made, but boy, is it important, right? I mean, it really does. People do still read the reviews. It makes a meaningful impact on their impression of who you are. It just, you need to go above that if you want more than just that one great review from them. Because they could leave, like I said, you're the topic of dinner, it's great, they left you a review, but what's the next interaction look like with them? How are you going to get them back into the store? So I think it's a big component. I don't think that could be the entire strategy, is that we just want to get great reviews.
100%. And I think the last question I want to just ask and let you guys kind of kick it around here is what I am hearing. If I try to boil these things down into a category, it sounds like this is the case at Duncan Bright. It sounds like this is the case for the people that Richard, you and Ryan both work with. But this has got to become, if it isn't already, part of your culture, because you're asking the entire team to be committed to this and to be contributing. So talk briefly about that, because it sounds to me like this has got to be in your DNA if it's not already.
Yeah,
I could speak to that go ahead.
Please, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I would just say that I 100% believe that this is a cultural, that you could buy software, you could put different things in place, but it starts with the culture of the retailer. And by doing that, I believe you're setting up your unique selling proposition correctly as an independent retailer, because I believe that this is something that you can do so much better than pure play e-commerce or big chain. So this has to be ingrained in your culture. And
I guess, Jenny, part of your identity, right? I mean, is your brand and everything else.
Yeah, literally. Anytime we get a review, we post it in the whole company thing, because it wasn't just the salesperson, it wasn't just the delivery person, that our customers interact with so many people throughout the store. If somebody's wandering around, it looks like they lost their salesperson, and a service or accounting person is around, they're still going to help the customer. And it's like, we've got a VP of happiness here. I feel like if they're generally content at the workplace, then the vibes go to the customers. If you've got like good vibes in a happy workplace, like good music, good things going on, it's just going to go along with the customers.
Yeah, and I mean, not that you need to, quote, incentivize every employee for every action, but because it is something that kind of goes across, there should be some sort of spiff or reward program, something that makes people understand that there is a positive reason to continue to do this. And sometimes that's as simple as, a half day off. It's not money. Sometimes it's just finding those extra little things that make people feel it's, you bought lunch for the drivers that one day, or everybody had breakfast, had breakfast morning where they all went out and started deliveries, whatever it happens to be. But it's those small things that you're doing on the inside as much as you want it to go on the outside. So, as she said about happiness it's a contagious thing. You have to be able to spread it. And that does start from the top down. So it also starts in our ownership rise as we go all the way down to the staff.
And I love that too, because when you think about the great store experiences you've had, and it's where it's a continuum from one person to the other, the person at the door, the person at the desk. If everybody is part of that, that same sort of a cultural feel, man, that's when you know that you're in a place that does really good business. I've got a couple of reminders before we close out here today, that I want to bring to everybody's attention. And this is going to be, I think, a must view. And next week, there's going to be our webinar. We're bringing in some of our friends from Pinterest to really talk about some of the things that they know. And it says you're revealing secrets for driving traffic. Pinterest is such a huge aspect of a lot of people's business. We're going to talk directly to them and answer all your questions. So on Monday, by the way, we will be putting out that registration email will be going out, so you'll be able to register then. And of course, for those of you who are taking part in the Synchrony Ignite program, as a thank you for watching this webinar, here's the challenge code, sales0423. That gets you some points on the Synchrony Ignite platform. You got to give a little something. You got to give a little something away here. So for those of you that sat through this, I think,
is that their loyalty program?
What do you do? Wow, what do you know? Loyalty for the sales staff. It's to encourage the sales staff to do their thing. Yes. Leave it to Richard Harris, the VP of Happiness for Orbit Interactive, to come up with that one. Richard, I thank you for being here. Jenny Albert from Duncan Bright Furniture. Please say hi to all of our friends there. And Ryan Blumenthal, VP of Sales with Client Book. I wanted to just ask real quick, Jenny and Ryan, was I right? Did that hour go by like that?
Real fast.
Real fast. Well, listen, I appreciate you guys being here. Once again, we'll have more on Monday relating to the Pinterest webinar, but I always like to wish you good health, good sales. And until next time, I'm Mark Schumacher. Thanks for joining us here from HFA.
Thank you.